Sometimes these things happen in MMA.
What's going on, fight fans? Welcome to These Things Happen in MMA. The purpose of this channel is to highlight moments and events that have made mixed martial arts into what it is today. Don't forget to follow the channel on social media at These Things MMA, and the link to my merch shop is in the description below. In this episode, I'm going to talk about a historic heavyweight tournament that saw an unlikely challenger emerge. This is the story of how Daniel Cormier won the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix. Assembled in 2011, the Heavyweight Grand Prix was considered as the biggest series of events in Strikeforce's history and consisted of 8 of the most notable heavyweights currently fighting in mixed martial arts. The lineup included heavy-handed prospect and former title challenger Brett the Grim Rogers, youngest ever UFC heavyweight champion, the War Master Josh Barnett, accomplished Brazilian jiu-jitsu legend Fabricio Werdum, former K1 Grand Prix winner and current Strikeforce heavyweight champion, the Demolition Man Alistair Overeem, former combat sambo champion and 3-time boxing silver medalist, the paratrooper Sergei Kharitonov, former UFC heavyweight champion, the Pitbull Andrei Arlovski, former Cage Warriors and Elite XC heavyweight champion, Antonio Bigfoot Silva, and lastly, former Pride heavyweight champion, the last Emperor Fedor Emelianenko. With the 8 fighters established, Strikeforce's highly anticipated Heavyweight Grand Prix was underway.
And there they are, ladies and gentlemen, 8 elite MMA World Heavyweight greats in the Strikeforce World Grand Prix.
The first part of the quarterfinals took place on February 12, 2011 and was held at the Izod Center in New Jersey. Although the lineup was set, Strikeforce put together 3 reserve bouts in case of any injuries or withdrawals from the tournament. In the first bout, Alistair's older brother Valentin Overeem defeated New Zealand's Ray Cepho with a neck crank in just 1 minute and 37 seconds. The second bout was an all-out striking war and saw 9-1 Chad Griggs defeat 7-1 John Vellante with a vicious first-round TKO. The third bout was a non-stop battle, with undefeated Shane Del Rosario emerging victorious against heavy-handed LeVar Johnson by first-round armbar. With all 3 reserve bouts finalized, Valentin Overeem, Chad Griggs, and Shane Del Rosario were established as the Grand Prix's possible alternates. The first quarterfinals match featured Russia's Sergei Kharitonov against Belarus's Andrei Arlovski. Ahead of the matchup, Kharitonov won 4 of his last 5 fights and was also the last man to defeat current Strikeforce heavyweight champion Alistair Overeem. On the other hand, Arlovski was hoping to rebound after going on a 3-fight skid and losing to fellow participants Fedor Emelianenko, Brett Rogers, and Antonio Silva. With Arlovski seeking redemption and Kharitonov looking to extend his winning streak, the matchup was set for the night's co-main event. As the contest started, Arlovski looked light on his feet and landed good combinations early. However, once the fighters settled in, Kharitonov managed to connect with a string of shots that dropped Arlovski as he finished the former UFC champion with strikes on the ground. The match ended in just 2 minutes and 49 seconds, and Sergei Kharitonov became the first fighter advancing to the semifinals. The second quarterfinals match featured Brazil's Antonio Silva against Russia's Fedor Emelianenko. Silva entered the matchup with a stellar 15-2 record and was 8-1 in his last 9 fights. However, he was a huge underdog as his opponent was considered by many to be the greatest heavyweight of all time. Competing in the sport for over a decade, Emelianenko held an incredible 32-2-1 record, but was fresh off the first real loss of his career when Fabricio Werdum managed to submit the Russian 8 months earlier. Before that defeat, Fedor hadn't lost in nearly 10 years, and his return was the most anticipated matchup of the Grand Prix. When the contest started, it didn't take long before the action commenced, as both fighters connected with explosive strikes across multiple exchanges. Halfway through the first round, the much bigger Silva used his size to wear in Emelianenko until a mistimed takedown landed the Brazilian in bottom position. On top, Fedor was able to land solid ground strikes and almost secured a Kimura before the fight returned standing, although Silva connected with a huge right hand shortly after the break and secured a takedown in the final seconds of the round. The second immediately began with another takedown from Silva, and he relentlessly pressured Emelianenko with strikes and submission attempts. The onslaught would continue for the entire second round, and after 10 minutes, both men were exhausted. In between rounds, Fedor's eye was a mess, and the cage-side doctors decided to stop the contest, awarding Silva the victory by TKO. As the results were announced, the crowd was livid, and Antonio Silva became the second fighter advancing to the semifinals. The second part of the quarterfinals took place on June 18, 2011 and was held at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas. The 3 winners from the previous reserve bouts opened the night's main card, however an additional fighter was needed for the 4th alternate slot. Enter Daniel Cormier, an undefeated 7-0 prospect and 2-time US Olympian who was fresh off his 4th win in Strikeforce. With his stock quickly rising, Cormier was selected to face Shane Del Rosario for an alternate spot in the tournament. However, 2 months before the event, Del Rosario was a victim of a hit-and-run incident, and he was subsequently replaced by former UFC title challenger Jeff Munson.
You were originally supposed to fight Shane Del Rosario, a very different fighter. When you found out that Munson was now your opponent, what did you do in training to prepare for him and then forget about Shane?
The change wasn't hard. It was a long time and far enough out to where I could actually get a full training camp in. But then the camp changed. You know, I was going to do a little more stand-up fighting than I would have done against Shane. Against Jeff, I'll take him down too, but I'll be willing to stand a little bit more with him than I would be against Shane.
The contest turned into a striking clinic as Cormier outclassed Munson throughout all 3 rounds and dominated the much more experienced veteran to win by unanimous decision. The tournament's other reserve bout saw Chad Griggs defeat Valentin Overeem by submission due to strikes in just 2 minutes and 8 seconds. With the final reserve bouts completed, Daniel Cormier and Chad Griggs were established as the possible alternates going forward.
The natural next opponent for you, I thought, would be Chad Griggs, but we talked to Chad, and he didn't seem all that excited to fight either you or Jeff. At the time, we didn't know who would be the winner of the fight. Who do you think they'll give you next, and are you interested in fighting Chad?
Logically, as our little tournament progresses, I fight Chad or, you know, Shane coming back, you know, so I'm open to either one of them. Whoever Zuffa tells me, Strikeforce, I'm all for it.
The third quarterfinals match featured 2 Americans as Josh Barnett faced Brett Rogers. Heading into the contest, Barnett was considered by many as one of the top heavyweights in the world. However, his reputation had been tarnished due to multiple positive drug tests, and this was to be his first fight in the US since settling his issues with the California State Athletic Commission. Meanwhile, Rogers started his professional mixed martial arts career a perfect 10-0 before experiencing setbacks against the much more experienced Fedor Emelianenko and Alistair Overeem. Both fighters were looking to put the past behind them and get back on track as the matchup was set for the night's co-main event. When the contest started, Barnett quickly took Rogers to the ground where he had a clear skill advantage, and most of the first round was spent with Josh in top position raining down blows on his opponent. Barnett secured another takedown early in the second, and shortly after he locked in an arm triangle that forced Rogers to tap and ended the contest. With the victory secured, Barnett picked up his 30th career win and became the 3rd fighter advancing to the semifinals. The 4th quarterfinals match featured Netherlands' Alistair Overeem against Brazil's Fabricio Werdum. Entering the tournament, Overeem was Strikeforce's inaugural heavyweight champion, having won the title against Paul Buentello back in 2007. Since then, Overeem spent the next 3 years mostly fighting in Japan, as he finished 8 of his 9 opponents along the way. In his latest outing, Alistair defeated rising prospect Todd Duffy in just 19 seconds to capture the inaugural Dream heavyweight title as well. Werdum didn't carry the same accolades as Overeem, however, as displayed in his fight against Fedor, he was an accomplished jiu-jitsu expert capable of defeating anyone. Interestingly enough, Fabricio holds a win over Alistair when the 2 met 5 years earlier in Pride, and the Strikeforce champion was keen on settling the score as the night's main event. At the start of the contest, Fabricio was effective with his striking, however much of the first round saw Overeem use his kickboxing while Werdum continually pulled guard in hopes of bringing the fight to the ground. Despite Fabricio connecting with shots in the second as well, Alistair would land the more effective strikes from the clinch and knees while in close range. As the third started, Overeem was clearly losing steam, however Werdum continued with the same ineffective strategy, and as the fight went on, Alistair controlled most of the round. When the results were read, Overeem won by unanimous decision and became the 4th fighter advancing to the semifinals.
You're moving on to the semifinals. Your opponent may be very similar to Fabricio Werdum. Can you discuss getting ready to move on to the next round?
Well, John Silva's next. I'm going to be ready for him too.
A month after his victory, news broke that Alistair Overeem was being removed from the Heavyweight Grand Prix by the promotion's new ownership. Earlier that year, in March of 2011, the UFC purchased Strikeforce along with its fighter contracts, and with the semifinals of the tournament set to take place in September, Alistair wanted more time to recover from an injury. However, Strikeforce was currently partnered with TV network Showtime, and unfortunately for Overeem, the company was unwilling to adjust their schedule.
Alistair Overeem is out of the Strikeforce Heavyweight Tournament. Can you give us some details on what went down with that?
He hurt his toe, pulled out of the fight. He's still under contract. The date that was set in September was set by Showtime. And it is what it is. So you got to get an alternate in there.
With the 2 sides unable to agree on terms, Dana White and the UFC would ultimately decide upon Daniel Cormier as Overeem's replacement. Now with the new matchup established, the Grand Prix continued on September 10, 2011 and featured Cormier vs Silva in the first semifinals bout. The contest began with the filling out process throughout the first 45 seconds until Cormier connected with a quick overhand right that dropped Silva. After landing some ground and pound, DC proceeded to batter Silva with strikes on the feet and staggered the Brazilian multiple times in the process. Silva eventually fired back late in the round, however moments later, Cormier connected with a huge uppercut that flattened Silva and ended the contest.
Down goes Silva! Hammer fist! Cormier has done it! Daniel Cormier has done it! Cormier makes it to the final and improves to 9-0! Mamma mia!
The first round stoppage earned Cormier a spot in the finals along with the 9th win of his career, and his next opponent would soon be determined.
Daniel Cormier, congratulations. Could you have scripted this any better? What did you think about tonight's performance?
Oh, it was great, man. I fought one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world and knocked him out. Give me some respect now. Guys, I'm going to the finals and I'm winning. I'm taking that title.
The second semifinals bout followed directly after Cormier's victory and featured Josh Barnett against Sergei Kharitonov in the main event. As soon as the contest started, both men were aggressive early and connected with wild exchanges throughout the first minute. Barnett eventually shot in for a takedown where he instantly gained mount position, and with excellent top control, he stayed in mount for the next 3 minutes as he proceeded to punish Kharitonov with brutal ground strikes. Moments later, Barnett secured an arm triangle and forced Kharitonov to tap at 4 minutes and 28 seconds into the first round.
Catch Wrestling 101! Barnett advances to the final with a first-round side choke! It's Barnett versus Cormier for the Strikeforce World Grand Prix Heavyweight Tournament Final!
Heading into the finals, Barnett was now on an 8-fight win streak while Cormier remained undefeated at 9-0. With Cormier's unique skill set and Barnett's vast experience, the matchup was one of the most anticipated fights of the year. The tournament concluded on May 19, 2012 at the HP Pavilion in San Jose, California. The contest began with a blistering pace as both men landed hard combinations early throughout the first 2.5 minutes. As the fighters found their rhythm, the momentum would shift towards Cormier, who was landing the quicker and more accurate shots. However, Barnett managed to connect with a knee that damaged Cormier in the final seconds of the round. The high-paced stand-up battle continued in the second, with DC quickly outstriking Barnett before scoring a single-leg takedown with relative ease. Cormier then spent the remainder of the round applying heavy top pressure and landing hard elbow strikes, busting up Barnett's face in the process. In the third, Josh would attempt to take the Olympic wrestler down to no avail, and Cormier countered by showing off his incredible technique and slamming Barnett to the canvas. DC continued to chip away at the former champion until landing a head kick late in the round that had Barnett severely compromised. Josh would survive the onslaught, however the beating continued in the fourth as Cormier once again got Barnett to the ground and landed vicious elbows. The pace slowed dramatically in the fifth, though Cormier was well ahead by this point, and he cruised to a unanimous decision victory after 25 minutes of action. In just his 10th professional MMA bout, Daniel Cormier became the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix champion.
You came in as a replacement for Alistair Overeem. You shocked the world by knocking out Antonio Bigfoot Silva. And tonight, you defeated one of the top heavyweights in MMA history in Josh Barnett. Daniel, can you please try to put into words what this moment means to you?
This is something that a year ago I never thought I could do, so I appreciate Strikeforce, Showtime, Zuffa, and Josh Barnett for giving me this fight and giving me the opportunity to be one of the best heavyweights in the world. Thank you, guys.
After the Grand Prix, Cormier had one more fight with Strikeforce before the promotion was absorbed by the UFC in 2013. He then went on to have one of the best careers in mixed martial arts history, winning the UFC light heavyweight title in 2015 and becoming the promotion's second ever simultaneous two-division champion in 2018. Cormier retired in 2020 and has since transitioned into a commentating role with the UFC. However, his unlikely Grand Prix victory remains as a defining moment that introduced DC to the broader MMA audience. In a year's time, Cormier went from a relative unknown to a backup fighter to a tournament champion, so let us never forget Daniel Cormier and his incredible journey to win the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix. As always, I posted some related material in the description for those interested. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below with the topic you'd like to hear me cover in a future episode. Again, don't forget to follow the channel on social media at These Things MMA, and the link to my merch shop is in the description below. Thanks for watching and supporting my channel.
For all the negative things that have happened in my life and me getting knocked down and having to get back up, I think it all prepared me for this, made me a stronger person. Everything's kind of turning around. Not only is my career going well, but I've got 2 young kids, got a great girlfriend, and my family life is perfect. My mom and them were here. I mean, all the negative, you know, losing my daughter, my dad getting killed, and you know, it goes on and on. You know, all that stuff just prepared me, you know, for the good times. Because no matter how bad things get, eventually, you know, the sun is going to shine. And we've all had our trials, so I mean, everybody deals with adversity. It's just how you bounce back from it.
Sometimes these things happen in MMA.